So Tim Cook has introduced this as kind of the third generation technology. So just as in 1984, Apple introduced the Macintosh, which is the first mainstream computer because it uses graphical user interface. And then just as in 2007, they introduced the iPhone, which became kind of the first mass market mobile computer. They're looking at the Vision Pro as ushering in a new era of spatial computing. And this is a really impressive piece of technology. It has, stereoscopic 3D camera system, sensor array that includes 6 world-facing cameras and eye-tracking cameras, LiDAR scanners, flicker sensors. It's something really that is kind of out of the future. But what does this mean for all of us in industry? What can we do it, and what are the applications? That's what we're here to discuss. So to get started, I thought let's start with a poll. How familiar are you with the Vision Pro? Do you have one yourself, like one of these, or are you just coming into this completely blind? Was to give everyone maybe another 10 seconds to answer this, and this will kind of help us all gauge where the audience is at and where perhaps everyone else is at. So it looks like a number of folks have read the articles, have seen a few videos. And obviously, it's not only available in the US right now, and you have to go into an Apple store to get it right now. So it's the barrier, and there's obviously the price. So there's the barriers to getting one. So we're going to jump in, and our goal today is to really answer how can the Vision Pro be applied against what we do at our company? How can it be applied against what we do at our company? And right now, the answer to this question is probably a little bit fuzzy, but our goal is by the end of this webinar, you should be able to answer this question well. And as you reflect on what you learned from today's webinar, we think your understanding will get even better. And we feel confident about this because for over a decade and a half, we at Prescaler have been helping the world's top companies answer questions such as the one we're going to address today. What we typically do is we take clients on a journey from A to B. It could be from going from an idea to an action plan, or an action plan to implementation. And the questions that clients often come to us with are things like, how do we get into a new market? What new markets are there that we can get into with our existing products? Is there a way to increase the performance characteristics of our products? And for any of these types of questions, what we are typically doing is bringing in the right expertise from startups, academia, adjacent industries, the folks who can help us really find the best answers and solutions to take that client on that journey. And so today in this webinar, we're going to go on a similar journey to the one that our clients take. What I kind of say is kind of like a lightweight version of that journey to answer that question of how the Vision Pro can be applied within our companies. So to look at this question and to get into this, we're going to kind of work on hitting a few milestones. So first of all, I'm going to go through help everyone get kind of to a certain level of understanding around how the technology works. After that, we'll look at applications. We'll also talk about the investment required if you wanted to build a use case around this or an application around this, and as well as talk about some hurdles. And in the same way that for our client engagements, we lean on experts to help us get into the meat of the topics. In about 15 minutes, we'll be bringing in Jay Banerjee, who leads ImmersiveTouch, a company that does AR/VR for surgeries. So Jay's going to be able to really help us understand how to make AR/VR happen for some of these use cases that might become of interest, and really get into it. And then we'll also have time for Q&A. So feel free to use the Q&A button in Zoom to drop in your questions that come up as we go through this. And we look forward to answering those towards the end. So to get started, our audience is really corporate innovation leaders. So what do we as corporate innovation leaders need to know about the Vision Pro? think about this or look at this, I thought that the best way for everyone to get grounded is for everyone to have kind of the same understanding of this kind of new paradigm. And it is a new paradigm. So I'm going to just walk through some of the main concepts so everyone has the same familiarity. So when you first put on the headset, the important thing to know is that you see the world that you already saw before you had the headset on, which is a contrast to being transported to an alternate graphical universe, which may be like more like a video game. So you see exactly what you saw before. And on the top right of the headset, there's like a home button. And so when you press the home button, just like you would expect with your iPhone, your apps turn up, and then you can look at one of the apps like a browser and then load up a window, which is the window for that application. And essentially what you're using is you're using your eyes as your mouse pointer, and you're using the tips of your fingers to click them together as kind of the mouse clicks. So you can use your hands to kind of also draw and do things like that, but also use your eyes to point at different parts of the screen, and then use that white bar at the bottom to move those windows around and drag things around. So essentially in this kind of interface, this interface is essentially draws on some of the similarities of the things we're already used to with apps, but instead of but your entire room essentially becomes your desktop. That's kind of the way to think about it. Your entire space and room becomes your desktop. So one of the key concepts is the eyes and hands are really the main input devices. So beyond the windows, another type of kind of application or capability, which we'll see in this app we're opening here, which is a kind of more of a puzzle-based application, is that you can essentially have augmented reality visualizations or models. So this is essentially just a basic puzzle, but you can imagine this kind of AR model could be your factory floor. It could be intricate parts of a product that you're designing and that you want to take different pieces apart of and look at from different angles. It could be a digital twin for an engine in an aircraft that's flying right now, and you want to check on its performance. You can imagine this kind of AR model could be any number of things, and it's really kind of only limited to your imagination. And you can essentially use your hands and eyes to navigate this whole thing. So there are three main concepts: the windows that we talked about, these AR models, these augmented reality models, like the one we just saw, which they call volumes in this paradigm. And then the third thing are essentially spaces. And the way to think about spaces is basically immersive environments. So I'm going to open up here kind of the Disney application. And as soon as I get in, you'll see here the space that I'm in has changed to that of a theater. And now I feel like I'm in a grand movie theater, and I still have my windows available where I can load up my movies and see my movies. So the third concept really is around spaces. So those are some of the main things to be aware of in terms of how this paradigm works and how to think about applications. And we can actually have all of these things work together and bring them together. And so here what we're seeing is an AR model of a butterfly. But what's interesting is that this butterfly actually knows where my fingers are because, again, of the eye tracking, and can kind of land on my fingers, even though I don't have that haptic feeling because there's no sensors or a way for me to have the feeling touch. And now we also have a window here, and this window opens up. And within this window, we have kind of a 3D environment where things are happening. And so I think this is really going to be very much a game changer for any kind of cinematic experience, including movie theaters. I know a lot of our clients are trying to create visceral experiences with their brands, where you have, for example, when you think of Nike, you think of competition, sweat, and sport, and things like that. And these kinds of experiences, I think, are going to be incredibly powerful for creating these kind of really visceral experiences where you can almost interact with the setting. You can imagine being in a scene in Game of Thrones and being one of the extras on scene as certain things are happening, and even participating in some ways. And just as, right now, every company has a website and a shopping store. I can also see a future where companies, maybe in 10 years' time, maybe sooner, will start wondering and thinking about creating these kinds of experiences. And so with this example, you'll also see that the 3D models don't have to be, or the things don't have to be confined within the windows. So you'll see here the dinosaur comes out of the window to create even more of that visceral experience. And again, it can interact with me because of the hand tracking and eye tracking. So, and last capability I'll mention is that this includes the ability for people wearing different people in different parts of the world wearing headsets to be able to work together within the same application as well. So those are some of the basic concepts that I think it's useful for everyone to have some ground understanding of this new paradigm and how it's familiar to existing paradigms, for such as that we see on phones and other places, but it also has some new elements to it. But how can this be applied in industry for kind of the jobs that we're in, the things that we do? There are some consumer applications you'll hear about in the news and stuff, but we're not going to focus on those. What we're going to really look at is the applications which are kind of immediately obvious in terms of where this can be applied in business. And the first one is it's now possible for any type of product to essentially have a showroom for itself. There are some types of products where it's just not possible. Like, for example, in this image, it's not possible to easily have a showroom for all the different types of aircraft that you might have, for example. And in some cases, it might seem ridiculous normally, like to have a showroom full of all the different pencils. But now it's possible for any type of product to have a showroom. And Lowe's actually has an application which demonstrates kind of this showroom concept. In this particular case, it's for a kitchen, and you can see you can move around the kitchen and see how it looks, but you can also change the style. And so this kitchen could be modeled on your own kitchen's dimensions, for example, so you can get a sense of what a kitchen remodeling would look like. And as I was saying before, for example, you might not think you could have a showroom for vaccines, but you could possibly have an experience where you can guide kind of end users or customers through how the vaccine helps people and how it's made and things like that. And so this is a way to showcase different types of products. And in this particular case, I'm actually also changing configurations of some of the pieces. Here you'll see the faucet being changed. So as an end customer, I can tweak the options and see how different things could work and really get an idea. And so that kind of leads into kind of the next use case, which is, essentially, this is a great way for customers to try things before they actually buy them. And, as you might know, one of the most powerful things for customers is being able to experience things for themselves before making the purchase decision. So this could be extremely powerful for that part of the customer experience. It also could be powerful for after the purchase decision. Sometimes there are complex machinery that you have to kind of figure out how they work. I don't know if anyone's tried to descale a coffee machine or anything like that, but you're going through manuals, you're going through YouTube videos, and even within industrial settings, there's all kinds of things like that. So in this example, we have something similar, which is assembling basically a desk. So you can imagine you might have your own kind of the physical desk that you're assembling, and step by step, you can see kind of the augmented reality desk being put together. So you can follow along and easily put the desk together. This is just, again, a very simple kind of illustration for a kind of a simple use case, but there are in industry sometimes more kind of sophisticated use cases that these kinds of things can be applied to. Live support, maybe dialing in a support agent of some type or an expert of some type to help you diagnose a situation. Because this device has so many sensors, it's actually a good way to record the reaction of customers to certain concepts. So you could show them different types of packaging. You could show them different colors, different sizes, and you can record the facial expressions and get quantitative data on this that you can then use to essentially do really effective market research on when making decisions on products and those types of things. Prototyping, there are some types of products where it's extremely expensive to build a physical prototype. And so you can imagine you might want to make an augmented reality kind of prototype. And with this one, I'd like you to look at actually where the light is coming from the window onto this model. You'll see that it's shining on the back of or on the side of this car here. And as I turn this model around, you'll see that the light continues to be where it should be. And so this, some of the AR models are not very realistic, but this is actually a fairly, one of the more hyper-realistic AR models, which will give you a sense of, like if you really wanted to push the limit of this in terms of realism, that it is possible, and that it's honors kind of what you would expect from light coming in from windows. And there's also shadows and stuff here. I don't know if you can see, but it's also making a shadow on the floor and things like that. You can also imagine that there's some types of data analysis that if you have an extra dimension to play with and all this real estate of kind of the living space rather than, or your workspace rather than kind of your desktop, it becomes easier to do this kind of data analysis. There are situations where you might have digital twins of your physical products and want to have some kind of overlay to provide additional information, or essentially even have controls. In this particular case, this is just a DJ turntable example, but you can imagine there may be some types of machinery where you could want to control it through kind of an augmented reality type of device. There are also folks I know who travel very long distances to do site visits and things like that. And so I think if we were to pair this technology with a drone that was live streaming from that remote site, it would save probably kind of a couple of days, if not a week's worth of travel to inspect things and feel like you're on site. So I think there's a big opportunity there. And then lastly, this is a great way for people to train, particularly for dangerous situations. And kind of our guest today will kind of maybe touch on that. So those are some of the use cases that we've identified, which we think are really interesting. We're going to run another poll. So we'd love to understand, based on what you've heard so far, which of these applications do you think could be really valuable for your company, or which of them kind of pique your interest? There's a couple of these are kind of more end customer facing, and some of these are more internal to our daily work type of use cases. All of these have kind of different kind of levels of value, and depending on your company and the things that it prioritizes, maybe some of these are more interesting than others. So let's see where we end up. Oh, it's actually a lot more even than I expected. So prototyping has high interest in the immersive data analysis. Is there a lot of interest too? Oh, so the immersive training actually is the most. Sorry, I had to scroll down. The immersive training is high interest. So great guest speaker who can help us think about that. The prototyping, the immersive data analysis, those are high interest. It looks like of these, and the visits could be interesting too. So great, thanks everyone for taking part. With that, we're going to bring in Jay. So we're really delighted to have the CEO of ImmersiveTouch, a pioneer in augmented reality and virtual reality surgical simulations software. The team there at ImmersiveTouch has won numerous awards, including the best simulation company in North America, as recognized by Frost & Sullivan, listed in 34 virtual reality companies to know by Built-in, and numerous other awards. So it's an incredible company. Jay, would you like to jump in?
Sure, Dino. Can you thanks for
Yeah,
the introduction.
yeah. Thanks for coming in. So you had a chance to play around with the headset, the Vision Pro. What are your initial reactions?
Yeah, so I've been in VR for more than 10 years, about 13 years, if you include my days in college. And the Vision Pro by far is revolutionary. I think it's better than anything I expected. And I've tried pretty much every headset available in the market. So I was blown away by it. The ability to see spatial movies is really exciting. So we can go into different consumer applications that will increase the widespread adoption of it. But I see what Apple's doing by releasing it at this price point and for the developer community and enterprise use cases.
Yeah, yeah. So, when you compare it to other headsets, are there any particular capabilities that you think are kind of more pronounced or more interesting?
Well, the first genius step for Apple as a business is essentially it's their ecosystem. So if you own an iPhone, if you own an Apple Watch, if you own AirPods, if you own a MacBook or an iMac, all of that is going to be integrated into the Vision Pro. The Vision Pro is basically a integrative hub of all of your Apple products, and it'll create a fully spatial awareness of all of your products. You can expand on your MacBook and have a 100-inch screen if you'd like, or you could have multiple screens on your MacBook so you can be extra productive without buying all that extra hardware. So the ROI makes a ton of sense when it comes to the 3500, and eventually it'll be a lot cheaper. But what you could do with it is really remarkable. And I think what I'm most excited about is the live sports. I want to be able to see courtside games for $5 instead of paying 2,000 or 3,000 or even 10,000 sometimes for these courtside seats. So that's just one example of what can be possible with this Vision Pro.
Yeah. So you guys, we'll get into
One
your
more thing. Yeah. One more
pro
thing, Dino, before I
yeah.
forget. The other headsets don't have the fidelity on the pass through. So the pass through on the Vision Pro is like 10 times better than even the Quest 3, which is probably the second best. Vario is another one, but it's a little more pricey and it requires tethered hardware. So that's another benefit of the Vision Pro.
Yeah, and by pass through, we mean the video of what's going on outside coming through kind of accurately,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, you can
Yeah.
decide to be immersed or you could decide to be connected to the rest of your room or the audience. So unlike other headsets which force you to be immersed in content, which could be a little isolating or it could be nauseating at times. With the Vision Pro, you don't get that. Your mind is not tricked necessarily into thinking you're separate from the environment. So you can actually feel just like augmented reality, HoloLens glasses, but infinitely better than the HoloLens or the Magic Leap in terms of the graphics, the field of view, the ability, what you could do with your uh, pass-through environment is 10 times better than anything that an AR device could do.
Right, right. So I'd like to jump into kind of the platform that you guys have built. But before we get into that, a lot of our clients are thinking about, is the ROI worth it in terms of looking at AR, VR? So, when you guys talk, you guys have an impressive list of clients in healthcare systems and institutions. How do they think about kind of investing in AR, VR and the ROI from that?
Well, it's a process for sure because this is really a new technology. This is nothing that anybody's seen before. Vast majority of people have never tried virtual reality, so once they try it on, it's such a unique experience, and the value starts to become much clearer after they try it on, after they put the headset on. So one of the challenges of selling virtual reality is that you need to have enough hardware to have people try it on. So that's one of the challenges. Now, the Vision Pro is in my opinion the next step forward, because every Apple store eventually will have a Vision Pro, so anybody can try it. Now they'll have access to it, unlike before, and that's going to now increase consumer awareness for virtual reality, and that's only going to help enterprise companies in this space, because as long as the consumer awareness is on par, that'll help increase enterprise adoption as well.
Right. So maybe if we look at kind of if we jump into your platform, maybe you can tell us a little bit about how it works and the value that residents, surgeons, and patients see. And I'm going to show some video from your platform while we discuss that, if that sounds okay.
That's great. Yeah, and I can talk through it. So I'm the CEO and co-founder of ImmersiveTouch. What we do is we take radiological imaging and we automatically produce three-dimensional models, not only on 2D laptops and computers, but we make it immersive, so you can actually go inside the anatomy from the inside out and understand the anatomy like never before. We've developed this technology with the help of roughly a council of 20 surgeon advisors who helped us solve a lot of the critical problems that surgeons face when they're planning for different procedures. Surprisingly, in trauma specifically, most surgeries aren't even planned today because there is no reliable technology that can quickly produce spatial models that trauma surgeons can utilize. So they're going in blind, and they're kind of going in and they're opening up the patient using their own experience, right? And trusting their own instincts, which is totally fine for experienced surgeons. But for the younger generations, that leads to a lot of mistakes. And ImmersiveTouch bridges that gap. We help bridge that learning gap by decades, right? So just like pilots have something called flying hours when they're judged on whether they can fly big commercial aircraft. In the same way, ImmersiveTouch allows surgeons to get those flying hours in an immersive simulated environment on real patients. So these aren't fake models by any means. These are real patients from radiology. We collaborate with the radiology department to get CT and MRI data to help produce these 3D models. And using devices like the Vision Pro or Oculus, HTC, we're agnostic to any hardware platform. So we are strictly a software company, and we work with every hardware vendor out there. So whether you want to use HoloLens or Magic Leap, or you want to use the Vision Pro or Oculus, we can help make that happen. On top of these radiology images, we produce just simulation in general. So as you see here, we've created training simulations for companies like Johnson & Johnson and Terumo to help produce training simulations so that surgeons can actually train on new procedures that are coming out or new implants. So that's really exciting for us as well.
Right, right. So you basically are taking MRI scans and those types of things and turning them into kind of 3D models. How did you guys get into this kind of business, and how did this kind of evolve?
Well, it was strictly out of need. At the University of Illinois, we had there was a research lab that was researching augmented and virtual reality since the early 90s. And so I got fascinated by that lab, and that lab was collaborating with a number of surgeons who were just as fascinated as I was. The surgeons wanted to develop on that platform to solve their critical problems, mainly training these residents and speeding up procedures, reducing operating time, reducing waste in the hospital where costs are ballooning left and right and hospital margins are being squeezed. There's a real need for driving efficiencies throughout the process and productivity. So augmented and virtual reality is a natural step in the right direction. And so collaborating with these surgeons throughout the country, that's really something that is where how we got into this business. Was originally starting with neurosurgeons and spinal surgeons, and then eventually branching off into plastic and craniofacial, and now we're into orthopedics and oncology procedures. So we're really expanding our different indications.
Yeah. And for folks who are putting their hands up, if you could put your questions in the Q&A, we will kind of cover them at the end, or if we see anything pertinent, we'll pick them up as we go as well. So what kind of things do kind of your residents and surgeons say? It must be having big impact on those folks.
Yeah, I mean, they can speed up their procedures by up to 2 hours on trauma procedures, which is a big deal when you're doing dozens of these cases a week. So trauma centers are being squeezed with lower reimbursements. So what we could do to drive down cost and also improve outcomes, reduce readmissions, those are some of our number one focus as a company. And so VR has been the ultimate add-on and a boost of technology for these surgeons, along with other. I don't want to isolate VR. We use other technologies like 3D printing to help produce customized medical surgical guides for the patients, and VR helps produce those. We've noticed that the ability to utilize VR in an immersive environment can easily create and edit these models. And that's where ImmersiveTouch really is. Our proprietary software allows us to edit these anatomical models so that we can either use it for 3D printing purposes, or we use it as an augmented reality device in the operation theater where you can actually have this information with you during surgery.
Right. This is a question from the audience, which might be a little specific, but in terms of procedures you're looking to model or plan in the oncology space, is there anything you can talk about that?
Yeah, so in oncology, we're pretty much across the board. We started with neuro-oncology with brain tumors. As you saw, many images of brain tumors. That's where we got our foot in the door with oncology. But now we're really across anywhere where radiology is viewing oncology scans is where that's where we would be, right? So if it's a liver tumor or a chest wall tumor, anywhere from any tumor across the body, but we really focus on those tumors that are complicated to access or have many blood vessels going through them, so it could be dangerous to remove them and cause internal bleeding. So we focus a lot on these complicated oncological cases.
And I'm curious how you think what the Vision Pro might impact your software or the offering. Have you guys had a chance to think through, what you might do with these kind of the new capabilities of this tool?
Well, I just started playing with it. If I can show you here, the ergonomics of the device is really amazing. I've been playing with it all night yesterday. It's like a ski goggle. I would really I champion the ergonomics of it. The comfort of it is a lot better. I think the resolution's really good, but it's still too early to determine whether this could be widely adopted throughout the healthcare enterprise. I'm still exploring that, so I don't want to say anything definitively right now because this just came out about a week ago, so or less than that, 5 days ago. So although it's promising and super exciting from a consumer perspective and we're still very much committed to the headsets we use today, like the Meta Quest 3, and so those are some of the price point on those are a lot less, right? So those are about 10 times cheaper, about $300 to $400. So you can get an amazing VR experience for just under $400. As you see here, the company ImmersiveTouch, we've been in business for over a decade, and these are our early augmented reality devices that we sold. This is our original surgical simulator that we had with haptic feedback, robotic haptics, and augmented reality. And so we have a very deep understanding of AR and VR and where it's coming from. I mean, it's actually amazing to see this Vision Pro come to life after 15 years in the business, and especially after seeing our early prototypes where, you know, these were refrigerator-sized machines, and now we can simply put on a headset and get that same type of fidelity.
Yeah. Another question from the audience is whether you see any applications outside of the planning and training in healthcare. Do you guys see you guys kind of branching out beyond that from?
Yeah, so this is malleable technology, right? So we've done all types of training simulations. So although we focused a lot on the radiology suite and 3D modeling of patient images, we do so much more than that, right? So we're doing a lot of training simulations for companies like J&J or Mira GTX to do um, procedural simulations, but that could be used. Though if you can imagine it, it could be done in VR, and that's what's exciting about VR. Is as Dino is showing prototypes of an airplane or an F1 racing car. To get that type of fidelity is possible. Anything is possible in VR, and that's what's really exciting about it. You can really put anything to life. You can create showrooms. Um, we're putting together immersive libraries of patients that are difficult to treat that residents should go through. So as you see here, residents can go through a number of different cases and get their quote unquote flying hours of surgery before they even, you know, become an attending. And that's what's exciting. The quality of care is going to go is way up, right? And that's what our goal is, to increase that quality and reduce complications. And this could be done not only in healthcare, but throughout, right? Training in general, emotional training, or HR related issues of, you know, of behavioral training. Those are some really exciting areas. I think live sports is going to be really interesting, or creating 3D movies like an IMAX experience. I was watching one yesterday on Apple Plus or Apple TV, and they're already coming up with immersive movies and immersive content. So that's really exciting, and that can also be produced by companies in this audience.
Yeah, yeah. So, do you find that you know, when you talk to kind of healthcare systems, um, you know, maybe there were folks who were more hesitant about this type of technology in the past. Do you think they might be less hesitant? How do you think it might impact kind of your prospective customers, and also kind of the types of use cases they might consider? Would they now be more open to more different types of use cases, do you think? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Are you talking about hospitals specifically?
Yeah, hospitals or similar institutions that you guys work with.
Our main customers are medical device and hospitals. And so hospitals in general are excited about technologies that can help improve the bottom line, help improve patient outcomes, and increase surgeon retention and reduce patient overnight stays, right? So anything that, because they have fixed reimbursements, anything that can help improve productivity, reduce cost that are unnecessary, which I mean, let's be honest. I mean, hospitals aren't operating as efficiently as possible. But with technology like generative AI, virtual and augmented reality, these technologies can come together and really, really improve how hospitals operate 5 years from today. Hospitals are really forward-looking. Many of them are technologically savvy and forward-thinking. The surgeons are the number one champions of immersive touch specifically. They're our biggest champions, and they love it for their own cases, right? So they can actually upload their CT and MRI and produce produce these 3D models where they can plan these surgeries in advance. And it only takes 5 minutes. So it's not a big investment in time. I imagine the Vision Pro will accelerate that adoption by a lot because many doctors today use the iPhone. Many doctors have an Apple Watch. So both of these technologies are going to integrate seamlessly with the Vision Pro, which then allows them to plan their surgeries while also checking their email or their text messages or FaceTiming their family. So there could be so many different ways of doing it, and I believe the Vision Pro will help us increase adoption with surgeons and hospitals.
Right, right. So I have a couple of other slides here which you can talk through together. So, the investment, if there is a use case that someone's interested, what is it actually going to take to kind of think through the use case? So in terms of putting an application together, it's not as simple as throwing together a website. There's also kind of 3D objects, the scene design, materials, services, lighting, and a number of other facets. What kind of things do you think folks need to think about in terms of that kind of experience and things to think through?
Yeah, we can definitely walk potential projects through the different steps there, and you've listed them out really nicely here. Some things are some things that drive up cost in investment would be whether you want the experience to be on rails or whether you want it to be kind of, fluid based on your decision making. So if you want to go somewhere, if you want to make a decision and it kind of interacts with you, that'll help increase the investment. But if you want something where you're simply just sitting there and you're watching an immersive step-by-step simulation, that's something called on rails. It's more of a roller coaster ride, which is really nice and it's great for demonstrations and for simple applications. But if you want to have more complex simulation where every decision matters and you're testing decision-making skills and you're testing where they're looking. Are they looking in the right place with their eye tracking? Are they are they using the right gestures and are they pointing at the right things? Are they being too aggressive when they're talking to an employee or something, right? So there's all types of things we can track, and that's what's exciting about this is there's objective data that we can collect to really objectify everything from HR to training to prototyping and understanding um, people's real opinions rather than somebody just kind of unanimously voting for everybody. Now people can put on their headset and using in the headset can then determine based on people's reactions whether they actually like this or not, whether they like this new R&D idea, or they're like, no, I mean, this is kind of ugly, or this is, so there's all types of so much efficiency that can happen to reduce bad decision making and improve that throughout the enterprise.
Right, right. So am I right in reading you if you're saying in some ways the more interactive and more immersive the experience, the more of an investment that's going to be required versus kind of as kind of a spectator type experience?
Yeah, absolutely. And how much data we're collecting and whether we want insights on that data and how many users we want, how many headsets we want, all of those things drive up the cost.
Right. And then we looked at this kind of purely from kind of the software kind of application development side. So, the types of folks you might need to put this type of application together, an application, for example, for the Vision Pro or another headset. Um, we have some of the types of roles that you might expect and the type of timeline and kind of in terms of investment and bill rate. Any feedback on this? Any thoughts on this?
Yeah, and you've done a great job putting together all the different talent required to produce a proof of concept that would help drive further investment into AR/VR. It's a multi-million-dollar investment. There's no doubt about that. But I think having a proof of concept is key because that will help the organization understand where this is going and how impactful this could be not only for customers but for internal processes. So these are, in a nutshell, 5 of the required talent that's required to produce a proof of concept, along with a lot of proprietary software that we would also utilize. It's along with the customization.
Yeah. So a couple of things before we jump into the Q&A. What do you think? Do you think there are any hurdles, or what hurdles do you think the Vision Pro needs to overcome to kind of achieve mass adoption?
So there's no doubt there's hurdles right now with this device. One of them is content, right? So, and the reason Apple wisely made it 3,500 is they wanted to be out of the reach of the average consumer. It was a purposeful decision because, quite frankly, with the lack of content on this device, it's just basically a massive TV screen with some really good, 2D content like Netflix and YouTube are both on 2D on the Apple Vision Pro, but they're changing their mind because of how amazing this launch went so far. YouTube has now announced that they're going to be developing for the Vision Pro to produce 3-dimensional content, which is really exciting. So it's going to take time. I would give it another 2 years before I would even start to consider consumer adoption. I think the early adopters will no doubt buy it. So content's number 1. Number 2 is going to be the price, right? But I actually don't think price will be as big of a hurdle as a lot of people think. Once they try it, they'll really understand the ROI and how if they could buy a MacBook or they could buy an iPhone for $1,500, it's not too far-fetched to think that they can get a lot more value out of their iPhone by using this device. So one thing is that the device currently is mainly built for MacBook functionality, not so much the iPhone. I think future iterations will be more iPhone-centric so that those who have an iPhone will find a lot of value.
Great. So I want to run a quick poll just to get a sense from the audience of where they're at. So if we open the poll up, you'll see we'd love to kind of benchmark the audience and for us to all think what everyone else is thinking here. What do folks think? Is this something that you're excited about, worth a discussion within your company? Something you'd like to keep on the radar? Maybe it's not a fit right now. But based on what you've learned so far, where is your head at in terms of thinking about this and what you think might be possible? Okay, so 61% are think of this as something they'd like to keep on the radar. Definitely, as Jay said, maybe in 2 years' time or around that timeline, we'll be able to see whether maybe Apple has a less pro version or like an Air version and more content and applications, and that might spur some more interest at that point too. And there's a couple of people who are kind of something they're excited about and worth a discussion. Actually, probably between those 2 buckets, probably around 40% of people. So it's interesting. So thanks everyone for participating. As I mentioned, feel free to jump into the Q&A and kind of ask your questions. I wanted to kind of just remind everyone, at the start of this session, we wanted to really kind of help everyone understand how the Vision Pro can be applied against, what we do at our companies. And that's really what we've been looking to do and to help everyone through. And hopefully, as we come to the end of this, you're able to kind of have gained some value from this webinar and checking that we have addressed this question. If we haven't addressed it fully, again, feel free to jump into the Q&A and let us know. And then also, we'd love for you to connect to us on LinkedIn. Feel free to put in Jay's name in LinkedIn and connect with him, and myself as well. And Jay's promised that he'll accept all your invitations, and this is a great way to grow your network. So with that, let's just jump into the questions. So I think that we had a question early on about how this can be applied in a manufacturing company. We did go through some of those use cases, such as kind of remote visits, live support within a facility, prototyping. Do you have any other thoughts, Jay, on how it could be applied in manufacturing context?
Yeah, my co-founder actually wrote a book called Virtual Manufacturing in 2001. So please look that up, Pat Banerjee, Virtual Manufacturing, which is how to apply VR in a manufacturing setting. Fast forward, 23 years, and that vision is definitely being utilized today in all aspects of controlling a facility remotely, or improving efficiencies throughout that manufacturing, and being able to honestly being able to be anywhere at any time, right? That in a live setting, right? That's actually something amazing, where you can actually be anywhere in the factory without having to go there, and have that level of fidelity and solving problems is important, and giving support to those who are giving giving remote support to those who are actually solving those problems.
Right. Second question, does the Vision Pro have an audio speech interface or just visual? I know Siri works on there. I don't know, Jay, if you've tried and seen anything on the audio side.
I'm glad you asked that. I'm glad whoever asked that, who was that? Joey. So Joey, thanks for asking that, because that was really what stood out to me, was that spatial audio, right? So I'm like watching dinosaurs go around me, and it's like fully spatial, or you're seeing somebody do zip lining, or and you're actually seeing that type of spatial immersive movies. So that's one of the biggest features of the Vision Pro.
Right. So the next question is, what are some of we talked about this a little bit, but what are some of the unique features of this device that set it apart from previous AR VR iterations, that while promising, have failed to become mainstream on a lot of the use cases mentioned? So is there something about the features of this that actually mean these use cases will be more successful with the Vision Pro?
So a couple of things. The pass-through is amazing, which didn't happen in the previous AR VR iterations. The Magic Leap and the HoloLens tried it with AR, but the field of view is so poor that people just couldn't adopt it, and the device itself was so heavy and expensive that it wasn't worth the limited field of view and being able to see everything around you. But with the Vision Pro, that solves one of the biggest issues with virtual reality, which is not being able to see everything around you while you're viewing immersive content. So the Vision Pro solves one of the biggest problems there. The other big problem that all other devices had was hardware ecosystem. Nobody has Meta hardware. Nobody owns Microsoft hardware. I mean, maybe you do a laptop or so, but you're probably buying it from HP or Dell. You're not buying it from Microsoft. These are not hardware companies. These are really, really good software companies that are trying to produce hardware. Apple is, in its DNA, first and foremost, a hardware company, and they know how to develop a hardware ecosystem that's sticky, whether it's your phone, your MacBook, or the Vision Pro. So one of the really good features of this device that sets it apart from previous VR AR devices is its integration with other existing devices that you already use, or the iOS that you're already used to, or the apps you're already bought and used to. So all of that's now coming together, and it's not just a separate ecosystem like the Meta or the HoloLens was.
Yeah, I recommend everyone who's in the US at least to book an appointment at an Apple store. You have to say, I think you're going to buy it to book an appointment, but nevertheless, you don't have to buy it once you're there. they have like a 30-minute like walkthrough, and I think you will be really impressed, I think, and start to understand the capabilities. So we do have a couple more questions, but we're kind of out of time. So what we're going to do is answer these questions offline and kind of send them by email probably in the next week. With that, I wanted to also put in a quick plug for next month's webinar. So if you enjoyed today's webinar, we'd love to have you come back next month, where we'll be talking about robotaxis, microplastics, and regulatory pressure. There are companies trying to create new products, such as self-driving cars, where the technology is arguably comparable to humans in many cases, but because of regulatory hurdles, they've not been able to go to market as quickly as they'd like. And at the same time, there are also companies with existing products, such as those in plastics, that they feel like there's pressure to change their materials and change their products. And so there's pressure on those existing products too. So we're joined by an expert from Adidas who's spent 25 years wrestling with these types of issues. So we'd love for you to come back next month. And at the end of this webinar, there's also going to be a survey that pops up immediately right after, where you can provide your feedback. And there are a couple of other questions. It would be great if you could take just 2 minutes and complete the survey. It would really help our future planning and other things too. And feel free to send in your other questions and stuff in the boxes in that survey as well. So thanks everyone for joining today. It's been fun talking about this topic, and it's great to see the kind of excitement from the audience as well. So thanks, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Dino.